Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name's FPL Phillips and it's yet another episode of Eddie versus the Algorithm. They're going to be coming to you on a more regular basis now thanks to no more international football for the foreseeable, and we'll also be having a double upload next week for you as we have our first kind of mid-game week of the season as far as I can recall. So lots more Eddie versus the Algorithm to look forward to. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. Make sure to leave a thumbs up if you are doing so. Make sure to comment down below at the end of the video whose team you think is coming out on top this week. Is it going to be mine or is it going to be the computer's? Before we get into having a look at this week's teams, let's have a quick recap as to how things went down in Game Week 13, with the Algorithm scoring a pretty underwhelming 34 points. I think even in the context of the poor game week that Game Week 13 was, this was a rather negative score. 34 points compared to the average, even in the overall FPL Manager player base. I think it was missing a few players who did get some returns, and overall it just went wrong with putting the captain's armband on Heung-min Son, a few other decisions and absentees from this side, and painfully Anthony Gordon sat down there on the bench. As you can see, 13 points he got in that game against Chelsea. I had the right players, just didn't manage to put him into the starting 11 over someone like, Martinelli or maybe an Mbeumo you could have argued might have been left out from this side. So overall, a little bit of bad luck combined with just in general not maybe the best picks, and a lot of the defensive options last week we know did really poorly, and that did negatively impact a lot of scores. We'll have a look at my team then. It was 9-3 before last game week. It is now 10-3, and despite not getting a great score by any stretch of the imagination myself, I did manage to get the victory over the Algorithm in Game Week 13. So it was 42 points for myself, largely thanks to the captain's armband being on Erling Haaland, and although his 7 points wasn't a mind-blowing score by any means, 14 points did seem to make the difference in a game week where small point margins did ultimately make what was going to be, well, who was going to determine who was going to win and who was going to lose. So yeah, my defence didn't do well either. Bowen, I had Palmer's points off the bench, so I had those as well in the bank too. So yeah, had the same front line, just the captain's armband making the difference. Return from Salah in midfield did help as well. But yeah, let's get into what you're probably here for, and that is the Algorithm team ahead of Game Week 14. Let's have a look at how the side is shaping up. And so it's going to be a 3-4-3 for the Algorithm this week. A predicted points total of 66 points. Not too shabby, if I do say so myself. And, well, to be honest, when we're looking at the scores from last week, hopefully it's going to be upwards in terms of points returns in this game week coming. In goal for the Algorithm side, there is going to be a keeper that we've not seen in the sides so far this season, and that is Trafford of Burnley, as they take on Sheffield United at home. So an interesting option to go for. Definitely, I think, a game week, and to be honest, with how results are going at the moment, you could push the boat out. Sheffield United have been a very poor attack so far this season, are not scoring a lot of goals, and Burnley are playing quite a high line so far this season and are conceding quite a decent amount of goals, but I nevertheless don't think it's too much of a bad punt, and I actually quite like the Trafford shout. It's nice to see a new name in the team for a change, to be honest. In defence, though, we are going to see some familiar names alongside one who maybe doesn't appear in the teams too much, especially in the Algorithm teams. Trent and Pinnock, we see fairly often. Brentford, when they have strong fixtures, Pinnock does tend to be the one the Algorithm goes for. He's predicted 4.7 points as Brentford take on Luton at home. Trent then, of course, is that Liverpool defender of choice to go for, really. And with these Algorithm and free hit teams, we can reshuffle the budget to afford him in these sides. So yeah, Fulham at home for the Reds in this one. Him against Tsimikas will be, I think, what a lot of people are on. I think the majority of players at the moment and the overall template will probably have Tsimikas in it, starting for a lot of managers. But there is another Liverpool option in the form of Kelleher, who we now have available to us as a pick. We've got Zinchenko as well as the final defender in this team. I do really like him as a pick from Arsenal. I don't think he's getting as much kind of press and talk around him in the FPL space as perhaps he is warranted. Gabriel and Saliba and the battle between those two seems to take up a lot of the discussion. But I think Zinchenko is a really nice pick. It's nice to see the computer data backing that one up as well. In the midfield, then, we're going to see a midfield four of Salah, Saka, so the usual suspects in there. And Bomo as well returns for another week. And then a name who, again, is not an often occurred player in these teams, Thomas Soucek of West Ham, whose Crystal Palace fixture does look good enough for the algorithm to pick him in this one. Again, 4.7 predicted points for him. So he is a fair distance behind the top three midfielders this game week in Salah, Saka and Mbomo, but 4.7 is still a pretty respectable points tally. And yeah, I think that Soucek is a good option, actually someone I looked at for my own personal team a couple weeks back, and I'm still kind of weighing up. But right now, I think if you're going to go for a player at that kind of price bracket in your midfield, despite not having maybe the kindest fixtures over the next two, Cole Palmer does seem the best player to go for from Chelsea with their long-term fixtures. I think he is the man. But up against the Crystal Palace side, who are now going to be without Decore, they're going to be without Eze as well. Might be a weakened side in that one. Could West Ham take the chance to exploit it? I think I'd put decent money on that happening. So yeah, I like the chances for the Hammers in that game, and I like Soucek as a pick for that reason. Salah, Saka and Mbomo, don't really need to justify them from their respective teams. Liverpool, Arsenal and Brentford, I should say, all having good fixtures against Fulham, Wolves and Luton respectively. And then finally, up front, we're going to see three forwards. Haaland, of course, taking the captain's armband. As we saw in yesterday's video, the predicted points go in favour of him for this week over Mohamed Salah's game against Fulham, which is definitely something that might be a little bit controversial. And I don't think too many people with both are putting the armband on Erling Haaland. I think, well, it is more in favour of Salah, but maybe I'm wrong. Let me know down below in the comments if you own both, who you guys are captaining for this game week. And then either side of him in the front line, we've got Ollie Watkins, Bournemouth away, and we've also got Wissa, who is, as with Pinnock and Mbomo, taking on Luton at home. So triple up on the Brentford boys this game week. So all that being said, it's a 66 predicted points total. We've got Palmer, Lascelles and Taylor on the bench. So we mentioned a bit about Cole Palmer. Nice to see that his predicted points total still looks relatively healthy, despite a lot of his XG coming from penalties. He does look still good from open play, and it's nice to see the data supporting that, even with maybe a tougher fixture on paper against Brighton at home, but their defensive record hasn't been too great this season either. Lascelles and Taylor, as mentioned, are then the other two options with Areola as the bench keeper. So that's the side I've got to beat this week, and this is the team I'm putting together to do it. And my team is lining up in a 4-3-3 formation. I have made some rather bold and maybe changes that not everyone would definitely choose to make. I've gone with Areola in goal, and now the West Ham keeper has become kind of a bit of a meme for not keeping clean sheets over the last couple of game weeks, and the last, well, since around game week 8 was it, where everyone used their wild card, and Areola's been brought in and hasn't really done much to prove owners why he is worth owning. But yeah, I think in this week, this could be the one where we finally see a clean sheet for him. I think Eze is going to be a big miss for Crystal Palace. That being said, they have got Elise back, and I do think that he does provide a nice creative spark for Palace. But I just think that I've got a bit gut feeling West Ham might keep a clean sheet in this one. So I've gone with Areola in goal, and I was also considering, Kelleher. I could have gone with Trafford as well. But I wanted that outfield triple up on Liverpool. Trent, Tsimikas and Salah taking the captain's armband are all in for that game against Fulham. I've also held on to Zinchenko and Saka, and then I've got Mbeumo in my midfield as well as Erling Haaland and Ollie Watkins, who both retain their places, and I've gone with them in similarity to the algorithm side. But two players where there are differences are in defence, where I have chosen to go with Taylor. So he's a player who has come off a few benches in recent weeks and has actually done quite well in terms of attacking returns. And I prefer him to Trafford just because kind of that upside, and I've even opted to go for him over having a front attacking 7 with a 3-4-3, or a 3-5-2 formation. So opted to go for him. Let me know whether that's a stupid call, but could come back to bite me, but I'm willing to take a few risks in this series. We've got a nice healthy lead, 10-3 anyway. Let's try and make it a bit more fun, shall we? And then up front, I've gone with Alexander Isak, who, hopefully is all fit and ready to go in that game against Manchester United. 4.7 predicted points it is. We seem to be seeing that number a lot today, but yeah, Alexander Isak in that game at home to United, who are conceding stupid goals at the moment. To be honest, with what I've seen from Onana in the Champions League this week, just taking a shot on target might have a decent chance of it ending back in the net. I'm a United fan, so you can't say that, I'm mentioning this and hurting your feelings if you're a United fan too, because I'm in just as much pain as you if you're watching. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. That is going to wrap up Eddie versus the algorithm for another game week of the season. This time it's been a privilege to bring bring you the content for Game Week 14 over my 2 videos. And thank you very much for those of you who've watched all in one, or maybe even both videos. If so, a special thanks to you. Cheers for tuning to continuing to tune into all the fantasy football fix videos as well, if I can get my English out. And yeah, it really does mean a lot to all of us here. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I'll wish you the best of luck for Game Week 14. And I hope to catch you in the next video. Goodbye.